let's start talking just briefly about the homework since it was not appreciated.
I did, I'm kidding, Eddie.
I know.
I'm kidding.
I know.
But I know about my bot for sure, I'm just saying, I think it had the desired effect that you were looking for it to have.
The first assignment was, we have talked about over the last few weeks, Hebrews 4:12-14. And what I wanted you to do is, we didn't have time to talk about it, but I wanted you to add verses 15 and 16 to that mix and see if that changed anything for you. Would someone like to read Hebrews 4:15-16 right quick? I didn't put it in my notes. I'm sorry about that. Go ahead, Chris, since you've got it there.
Seeing then that we have a great high priest who has passed through the heavens, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold fast our confession.
That's 14, right?
Yes,
Okay, 15 and 16.
for we do not have a high priest who cannot sympathize with our weaknesses, but was in all points tempted as we are, yet without sin. 15:16. Let us therefore come boldly to the throne of grace, that we may obtain mercy and find grace to help in time of need.
Okay, how does that tie back into what we've learned about the Word of God? The Word of God is quick and powerful, sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to dividing asunder soul and spirit, joints and marrow, and is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. How does all that fit together? Now he gets to the high priest. He understands us. Okay.
Did this, already been through it, and he did it without sin.
Okay.
So he is, the part, I will just say that in my moment of desperation the other day, I called out for his mercy. My Lord, please have mercy. Whatever that mercy is. And from that asking, I got peace.
Cool.
To me, it's letting us know that he was God, but he came as a human. And he went through every kind of human thing, and more so on the cross than we've gone through. So he totally understands how we're feeling, how things hurt us, how things make us frustrated, how things make us angry.
And some people would still say, well, but that was Jesus.
That's just wrong. Then they don't understand he really was a man.
Okay. You've got to make that designation that if he didn't come and do this purely as a human being,
Yes.
without any of the benefits, without any of the advantages, without any of the perks of being deity, then none of it matters. And if you actually boil it down to brass tacks, if he did it in any of those cases, our redemption is invalid. God cheated. He didn't do that. That's not the way that this worked out. But had he have used any of his God powers or God abilities to walk this thing out, it would be illegal.
The Holy Spirit
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But my point is,
Right.
the fact that he did it and the fact that he did it successfully means we can too. And we have beaten ourselves up for so long that, oh, I'm perfect, I'll never be perfect. Well, God calls you to be perfect. No pressure.
That's what grace is all about.
So mine's a New Living Translation. This high priest of ours understands our weaknesses.
Yes.
He gets it, man.
Yes.
It's all the same testings. It's good sense. And he already laid out the blueprint of exactly, how to navigate.
How to do this. Yes.
And it's like this, image. And so that's pretty cool. But it talks about we have to boldly approach the throne, receive his grace and his mercy.
And the word there is not actually, not receive is not a good translation. The word there in Greek, lambano, some of you have been in my classes before, it means take, it means seize,
Okay.
lay hold to. Not just, okay, God, I'm here. Would you please give me grace? Would you please help me with it? No, God, you've made grace available. I take my grace now.
Even though that's a
Yeah, John, Pastor John taught on that, probably a long time ago, that God's not gonna, God will provide peace and joy, but you have to take it. And how do you take it? You ask, you seek God,
Right.
and you ask God to guide you, and you ask his, just speak to you, all these things. And in doing so, you're taking an action to take that peace, you're to take that joy. Well, it is, yeah, you can choose to take it or not. I'm just saying though, it's not gonna be just willingly poured on you. Can it be? Yes, God can do anything. But he wants to interact.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the thing, is he wants your interaction. So you got to take it. And I mean, I don't, and somebody's forcing you to take it.
And to me, that more emphasizes the word boldly. You come boldly to do this. You don't come passively. You don't come, oh God, if you could just see fit. And people think they're being humble when they act like that and when they carry on like that. And you're wrong. You're deceived in believing that is humility. Humility is walking right up there and taking what God told you to take. The more you get that, yes. And that's how it ties back to the word, yeah.
Right. You're not doing it defiant.
No,
You're doing it defiantly to say,
you're learning
but
that you are.
you're not doing it defiant to God. God said, I have all of this you want, bro.
Right.
Take it. And yeah, there's not a, and for one day, for almost a 24-hour period, I gave some territory away to the enemy. And I was wanting to get into that possible victim, but I don't know what it was. It was just a miserable freaking day. But that's.
Yeah, I think we've all done that.
Yeah, well, anyway, but anyways, it was like, man, I cried out. I said, God, have mercy on him. In doing that,
And
I was taking something.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
taking something.
You took the action, yeah.
Yeah.
And I dare say, even though you still have some bad days like that they are fewer and far between, and that now you're starting to get a clue about, okay, I'm not staying here. I see what this is. I recognize what is happening here, and I know how to get out of this.
And I recognized it. I actually watched something and it was talking about victim mentality, and I was like, oh, okay, this was very convicting, because I was like, I am on the brink, I'm on the road, if not on the brink of that, and I don't want to be. And I was like praying, I said, Lord, I don't want to be a victim, I want to stand and, victorious, and I don't want to roll around in this anymore. This is yuck. And so I made a decision, I stood back up and, just continued to seek the Lord, and it's like, it was
Yes.
such a shift
Yes.
the very next day.
Yes.
And I haven't been the same. And, I've been stronger, and I can see things totally different. And it's just all as, just being able to recognize he's showing me, even convicting me, gently to say, well, you have a choice here. Which road do you want to take?
And you see it as a choice too. Yes. Yeah.
Choose. That's right.
Yep.
It was awful. And it was feeling awful, or I chose to, stand up, embrace what he had to be, choose, to reach out and take joy and grace and mercy.
And I hear this and I just cheer on the inside, because it's like, yes, we're getting it. It's making sense. We're moving in the right direction here. What would have years ago, months ago, taken you out for indefinitely or out permanently, you can now say, oh, I was only in there for a day, or I was only in that spot for an hour. Yay. That's awesome. Praise God. Go ahead, Chris.
Grabbing and taking hold of is powerful, because the enemy will make you feel bad about taking what is yours, or taking back what is yours. He's a bully, he's a coward. He'll steal things from you, or he'll get you to give it up.
Yep.
And
He's
then
a liar. Remember, he's a liar.
He's a lion, rolling around, with no teeth.
Well, then he'll make you feel bad when you go back and take it back. He'll say things like, that's not yours. Well.
Well, it was before you stole it. Oh, no, no, you're not.
Because the devil is all about division, and so he'll do the same thing to everybody, he won't ever tell anybody, and then when we start talking, it
Correct.
exposes. The devil doesn't like that fellowship.
Correct.
Bring it to the light.
Yeah, he wants everybody in their own little corner thinking everybody else has got it good except you. But the devil will make you feel bad about taking back what's yours. We don't have to feel bad about that. It belongs to us in the first place.
Have you ever heard anybody teach on getting up every day and making affirmations of what the word says you are?
Yeah.
And who you are? It will change that. There'll be less times the devil can trick you. The more you get in your heart, in your mind, because he works through our mind also, who we are in Christ Jesus. We are the righteousness of God in Christ Jesus. Yeah.
Have you ever heard some well-meaning person say, oh, I'm just going to bombard the gates of heaven about this particular prayer need? Have you ever heard that phrase?
Big back in the game, back in the game.
But you get the concept. Okay, think about that physically. Where does that mean you're praying from? Where are you praying? You're outside heavenly gates, launching hand grenades into heaven, hoping you're going to do something with those hand grenades you're watching into heaven. Does that even make sense in light of what we just read?
Well, the Bible says we're seated in heavenly places.
Correct. You're supposed to already be in the city. You're supposed to go boldly into the throne room and take stuff.
And not outside the gate. The kingdom.
But these people that say that, don't you know that they're trying to be humble about, oh, I need God to do this for me, but what they're really admitting is their ignorance. What they're really admitting is the fact, I don't really believe what this book says about me,
Or they were taught wrong.
or they were taught wrong.
Yeah, a lot of said a lot of wrong teaching years ago.
I think that people think, like, I don't even know if it's a humble, it's an identity issue of just like being able to receive. God's
True.
love.
Yes. Okay. Good.
So I think that once that starts, shifting and as they're, destroying and rebuilding and able to accept and receive, or take hold of God's love. I think that will change, from that mindset because, I know that sometimes it's hard to accept God or understand, like, oh, I don't deserve that love, and it makes it difficult to go, like, well, I don't feel like I should go in the room. I don't feel worthy enough, or I feel dirty or whatever. And I know that's the lie from the enemy.
That is a big lie.
But I know other people, they're just not there yet. And that's, I think, sometimes why they're like, oh, I'm gonna go to the gates. I'm still here, I'm gonna try. I don't feel able to go to the room yet.
I'm hoping that y'all's identity and your perception about this is shifting. And it sounds like it is, that you're starting to realize I don't have to stay outside and hope and wish and want and maybe possibly, hopefully that's not what God called us to do. That's not the life he called us to live. That's not the way he told us to operate. And your life will change when you finally realize that and start acting accordingly. What in the world am I doing out here, self, outside these gates? My Father's inside, and I have a legal place to be with him in his throne room right now. That's where I'm going.
Yeah, he's looking at his watch, expecting no crap. Yeah. Because he
True.
knows.
True.
Yes.
He does. It says due season. That's the only thing on it.
God gave us an imagination. And something that is quite regular in devotionals and what has been spoken to me is that use your imagination.
Right.
To the best of your ability. Picture the throne room. And you have God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit to the best of your ability, form that picture, that throne room in your mind, and picture yourself going in there, and what does that look like to you? You know, what do you do? What do you know? Use your imagination in this, and like, I've gone in there, and I've just, you know, just because of what I've read in my imagination, I'm going to lay down flat. But I hear Jesus, I hear God, and I hear the Holy Spirit. And I bring my petitions, whatever, you know, I don't want to be all religious, but I really.
I hand carry them in. I don't send the carrier pigeon or the smoke signal.
There, and
I hand carry them to the throne.
that's spoken by Max Lucado, by a lot of these people that sit there and say, what is Jesus doing?
Right.
He's petitioning for you to God.
Yes,
He's in there, he's at God's right hand, petitioning for you.
with the stuff that he can use, that he can use.
Right, but you know, and it's just, to me, it seems elementary to, oh, let's play imagination. No, it's not, it's a gift. And it sounds silly, but I can't tell you how many times being in worship.
But that's exactly what God gave you. It's exactly what he gave you the imagination for.
During worship. Man, I can't tell you how many times, I don't do it every time, how many times I've sat there and there's just a moment where I'm like, I just envision this, the whole congregation in that song in the throne room, and I just know God is going, man, thank you, this is, you know, this is pleasing to me.
The verse says, he inhabits the praises of his people. And I heard of somebody one time that had a visitation or something, and they got to understand what that verse was actually talking about. And what it actually means, he inhabits the praises of his people. So you gather, and God may or may not be there yet, but once you start praising, this person saw all these angels going out and getting building materials to build a throne right there where you were. He is preparing a place to inhabit once you start the process of inviting there. And I'm going, that's really a cool visualization to see. What? Yes, yes.
He lives in the praises of his people.
He comes to dwell. He comes to rest. He comes to, and it would be great to have a throne for him when he got there.
Because that's what works. I mean, John, of course, has been, shaking it up, which is awesome. But, it sets the atmosphere and it kind of cultivates our heart. I mean, it invites the spirit and God to inhabit, his people, the praise of his people. And, it sets it to where then you can listen and receive the message too. I don't know, just something, worship is so crucial. And, hearing the word of God's awesome, but it's the worship that, changes the atmosphere.
Okay. All right, let's go to the second question right quick, and then we'll actually get into some new stuff today. I told you to think about James 3, Matthew 12:34, and Luke 6:45 in terms of our default words. This is prefaced by Proverbs, what was it, 18:21 or something like that, about how life and death are in the power of the tongue, and they that love it will eat the fruit thereof, or something like that. James 3 talks about the tongue being an unruly member and how it's like the bridle that people put into horses or the rudder that people put on the ships.
Praise God.
You're right. And those two things both shouldn't be coming out of the same mouth. But it talks about how you can bring your tongue under control. You can get it to the point where it obeys you rather than it causes you trouble. And then Matthew 12:34 and Luke 6:35, both of those say, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if it's coming out of your mouth, the scary part is that means it's in your heart in abundance, not just in there, but in there in abundance, or that wouldn't be coming out of your mouth. So can you change your default words? If Proverbs is talking about the people that just have no clue and they're just running their mouth up all the time, and that's probably a bad thing. And then these other things are suggesting, okay, you can in James begin to control your tongue like people control horses or people control ships with the rudders. And then Matthew 12 and Luke 6, both of those out of the abundance of the heart. If you change the abundance of your heart, you can expect different things to come out of your mouth. So can you change your default words? Yes, you can. And then once your default words become a good thing, are you in danger from Proverbs 8:21 about you're going to eat the fruit thereof? No, it's a good thing. It becomes a promise at that point rather than a threat or a warning. But you've done the work of changing your words to be something that gives you a desired result instead of something that you don't want to happen. I've done this exercise before, and it's probably worth repeating. For a period of time, after everything that you say, add this phrase to the end of it. And that's the way that I want it. No. And that's the way I want it. Do that sometime. Just listen to yourself talk. And at the end of everything that you say, add the phrase, and that's the way I want it. And just see what sorts of things you're wishing on yourself without even paying attention to it.
Like when I read, part of the 1821, I'm like, ouch. Ugh. I'm reading a book right now by James Morris called Me and My Big Mouth, because I.
Right. And that was on my point with Proverbs 18:21 and bringing this up is at the moment that seems like more of a warning than a promise. You got to get this tongue under control, or you're going to constantly be eating fruits that you don't want to be eating. But after you take the time and get it fixed, and that's what I wanted you to consider when you start looking at these other things. After you take the time and you deal with what you're thinking about, and what you're saying, and what's in your heart in abundance, so that good things are coming out of your mouth. Now it's a promise that those who love their words will eat the fruit of it.
That I was willing to pray for the Jews in the midst of this conflict, but I wasn't going to pray for the Palestinians. Didn't God create both of them?
Yeah.
No, that's why I said.
And he has covenants with both of them.
Say it again?
He has covenants with both of them.
And, yeah, it was like, it was a good intention.
All right, let's actually move forward a little bit. So that was the point that I gave you for the homework. I wanted you to think through some of this stuff and see some things differently. Hopefully it reached those ends, and if it didn't, then you can think about them more this week now that you know what I was intending with them. Dutch tells the story of how he idolized Roger Staubach. Now, I've got to ask the question, does everybody know who Roger Staubach was or is? Okay. He was a Super Bowl winning quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys for years. I think he won 2 Super Bowls with them back in the 70s. Great guy, great quarterback. Oh. All right, moving right along. You got to go back several more years. Anyway, Dutch idolized him and really wanted to be like him and wanted to play like him. So he decided that he was going to go out on the field and just believe that he was Roger Staubach and try and do all the stuff that Roger Staubach was able to do. As you might imagine, that didn't work out very well for a teenage boy playing quarterback at his middle school or high school or whatever it was. It did not have the desired results. Let's just put it that way. Why do we think that we can just copy somebody and do what they do without going through what they went through to get to where they are doing what they're doing? And yet we try it all the time. As we approach the end of this book, we must be aware that we get ourselves in trouble spiritually with the same delusions of grandeur. Somehow we think that just by reading this book or any other book and coming to this group a few weeks will immediately result in our emergence as a master of the ideas we have been discussing. We expect to be overnight legends in the faith when we're actually undeveloped and inexperienced beginners. Part of this fantasy comes from a good and a positive place. We should desire to grow, to change, to mature, and to get results. We are often naive to think that we can have those results without embracing the process that will produce them. You ever thought that once you finish the book and or the circle, you will have lasting freedom? Has that thought ever entered your mind? Oh, when we get done with this, I'll be there. I'll be free and I don't have to worry about this anymore. Okay, I'm kind of concerned that nobody had the thought on one hand, but I'm thrilled that nobody had the thought on the other hand.
I'll just say, I've been given another tool.
Okay. And really what that says is that y'all are maturing significantly enough to know, okay, here is another tool, here's another thing to think about, another approach, but it in itself does not guarantee my freedom. It's one of the things that I can do to get to freedom. It's one of the things I can do to maintain freedom, but it in itself does not automatically mean that I'm going to be in that place.
Right, but I see that things like this book and other books out there, along with the word of God, loosen, some things loosen than bounds, that we have on us, and therefore it's making it more accessible for us to walk in.
Right. Okay. That's good. I'm not at all criticizing any of these concepts. God wants you to set your expectations as high as possible. I'm obligated to remind you that with few exceptions, this won't happen overnight. Did you get into this mess overnight? How many years have you been working on all this mess, all this clutter, all this stuff in your head unchecked? Now, I'm not asking you how old you are, but the number should be pretty close to how old you are. How many years have you been working on this particular problem? Why do we think that those number of years are going to be fixed overnight? And yet we do so often in so many different ways. We believe that this mess that took me years, months, weeks, days to get into is going to be fixed instantly. And then we get disappointed when it doesn't happen like that.
You said,
Correct. And expectations, yes. God, you're going to help me. And when God takes his super and he puts it on your natural, you can get there supernaturally quick. It's not going to take as long to get out of the mess as it will to get you in the mess. I'm not saying that at all, but I am saying that it's probably going to be more than a one night thing.
what keeps me sober, or what keeps me, is that I don't wanna go back, and if I wouldn't have.
Right.
This process, this long.
Right.
process, gain my life back, gain my health back, gain, and then now working on character defects and thinking errors and behavior.
Yes.
patterns. This is a process.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that makes, standing all of God, like, thank you, God, because now, because I have struggles, because I have to take everything to you, and, to realize, hey, man.
Yeah.
This is hard.
Right.
Let's
Let's not do it again. Yeah.
turn it on.
Good. Very good. I hope that by now you can agree that God's purpose and intent is to help you become who he made you to be. I hope that you've seen that. I hope that that's clear to you, that his desire is for you to become who he already made you to be. for the real you to come out and find expression, for the real you to be the thing that most people see on a day-to-day basis, to be the real life that you are living from. With that being said, if that's God's desire, if that's God's intent, don't you think he knows the best way to get you there? And what I'm here to tell you is the best way, more times than not, is to go through a process. So if God's desire is for us to get to this place where we're free, where we're like him, where we're doing what we need to be, where we are actually living who he made us to be, and if he's capable of directing the best way to make that happen, and he has chosen, in most cases, 99% of the time, 99.9999, whatever percent of the time, he has chosen to make this a process. Shouldn't you trust him that the process is the best way to get from here to there? It's not the easiest way.
But it just don't look right now. But
You're right. You are right. Yes. Yes. We want
Well, that's smart. I don't want that.
we want it easy. We want it fast. This whole microwave society has really screwed up our thinking. We want it now. And if I can't have it now, well, then there's got to be another way for me to get it now. Where's the Prime account, God? We go back to this verse. We've read this verse a couple times, but we go back to it. Isaiah 55:11. In the same way, my words leave my mouth and they don't come back without results. My words make things happen that I want to happen. They succeed in doing what I send them to do. Here's another couple of versions of that. So will the words that come out of my mouth not come back empty-handed. They'll do the work that I sent them to do. They'll complete the assignment I gave them. So my words, which go from my mouth, will not return to me empty. It will do what I want it to do and will carry out my plan well. Not just carry out my plan, but carry out my plan well. Now, as we've gone through this book, we've used this verse a handful of times. I noticed something as I was preparing this that I hadn't considered before. God is not just randomly saying stuff. Some people view God as like an auctioneer or the color commentator on the sports broadcast. Those guys seem to be paid by how many words they can speak out in a period of time. Somehow their check is determined by how many words they can speak out. So we've got this false idea of God in many cases that all he's doing is just talking all the time, just spewing stuff out of his mouth just to be talking. And if you, in the midst of all this pile of words and pile of junk, can dig through there and find one that helps you, he'll back it up. But his motive is, I'm just going to keep yakking, and it's y'all's responsibility to dig through that mess and find something that's useful to you. Now, and it struck me really profoundly this time that that's not at all what God's doing. Look at what he say very carefully. With this perspective, you would say that God was bored and just started randomly talking one day. He said a bunch of stuff so that if you find something useful in that big pile, he'll back it up. That's almost exactly what really happened or happens. God doesn't speak until he has a goal for his speaking. Read these carefully. So will the words that come back to my mouth that come back empty-handed. They will do the work I sent them to do. Is he talking randomly? When did he open his mouth? In the beginning, yes. But what caused him to open his mouth? I have a desire, I have a plan, I have a goal, and I need to address that goal, that desire, that plan. So I'm going to speak. It's not him just up there, blah, 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 blah. I know that they need peace, so I'm going to speak to peace. I know they need joy, so I'm going to speak to joy. I know they need deliverance, so I'm going to speak deliverance. The intent is not him just up there talking. The intent is he had a desire, he had a goal, he had a plan. I'm going to open my mouth and release that plan. Correct, yes. Yes. This was staggering to me when I finally realized the reason that he spoke was he had an intention for the words. Not just to be speaking, not just to be spewing. Hey, I like to talk. I'm gonna talk today. And you've met people like this. You probably some images come to your face. I'm not looking at anybody. I'm not doing. um, some people that just enjoy to hear themselves talk. That's not God. God doesn't open his mouth until there's a reason for him to open his mouth. He's sending those words on an assignment. So that was one thing that I noticed about this that was really good. You must realize that for you to continue in your bondage, in your fear, in your addiction, in your insecurity, or whatever, God needed to actually do nothing. If that was God's heart, if that was God, where God wanted you to stay, you're already there. You're already in fear and addiction and insecurity and depression and all this stuff. You are already there. Did he need to do anything to change that situation? But what did he do instead? I don't like this. I don't like what I'm seeing. I'm going to speak the opposite. I'm going to declare an alternate. I'm going to declare something other than what they're currently facing. So wouldn't it make sense that it's his desire to get you to that place too? If he didn't speak it until he saw the need and he wanted that need to come to pass, he wanted that change to be the thing that was brought forth. If he didn't even say it until then, it's his desire that not only that he said it, but that now you are empowered to get to the result that he spoke. The other part of the new thing that I noticed here was that there's no reference in the verse to how long it takes. We can go home right now. Oh man, what a bummer. Major downer. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
I just real quick, it's like, it just means that there's no expiration date.
That's true. That's one way to look at it. Yes. Yes, that's good. Yes.
Yeah, either.
I was trying to bust that in there.
Yeah, well, I'm listening to this. I'm being very transparent here. So I didn't smoke for a whole long. I thought I smoked a total of 15 years combined. I was delivered from that really quickly. In a prayer, I was delivered. Alcohol, I drank pretty consistently from, oh gosh, or just to stay a long time. Again, I was delivered from that prayer. Not quite as quickly as the smoking, but I was delivered from it relatively quickly. So I was delivered. Let's just say I didn't do little do other than prayer. I was delivered. Here we go. Pornography. I was exposed to pornography at a very young age, whatever means it was, magazine. Let's say, oh gosh, 5, 6 years old. And that has been ever since that age up until now, has been a struggle. It's been a thorn or whatever you want to call it. Now, December 19th, 2022, I have not gone to a pornographic website at all. But the temptation still is active. The temptation for smoking and drinking is not there. I don't desire it. But the temptation for seeking pornography is still there, and it's just like, Lord, I've asked you, and I've prayed to you, and thank you that I don't do these things. but I didn't get the lottery on that one.
Right, right.
And so, you know, it keeps going back, so we're doing the studies in First Corinthians, this and that. And it's just talking about, you know, God's very adamant about sexual sin. And so I know he's keeping me there for a reason. Not keeping me in the temptation, I'm just saying that he's keeping me in the word in that. And it's that process, you know, and I hate it. I mean, I don't hate the process, no, let me phrase it. I hate the sin.
Right.
I hate the sin, I hate the temptation of it, because it's shameful, you know, I'm married to people, but why do I need to?
Right.
You know, and it's just that, oh my gosh, Lord, when is that gonna be totally and utterly free of it? He hasn't said anything, he's like, no, you gotta go through this, dude. You gotta seek me in every part of this. And, you know, when I stumble and fall.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, it's just.
What went into my head when you said that? What was the first, sin that Adam and Eve noticed, when they were bottles? That they were naked. It had something to do with that. I don't know what, that was the beginning of them knowing they had sinned when they were lied to and they ate them, whatever it was.
It's just, I'm not gonna go on any further, but I'm just saying that this has been a 2-year process. Praise God, I have not gone to those websites. Thank God, I feel delivered from at least that part. But these temptations that randomly pop up, I don't know, it's just.
Yeah, I'm just gonna point this out and you can do with this what you wish. If somebody were to come to you and they were bound by alcoholism, would you be able to help them? Well, you say that, but you didn't go through the process with that. You got zapped with that one.
Sure.
So if you can't pray the prayer that zaps them,
Right, yeah.
you can't walk them through that journey.
I'm telling you, I know God, I've had a young man, and I'm his accountability partner for pornography. His weekly history in his phone and his laptop is given to me each week, and I'm like, Lord, I'm not worthy to be this, I'm already struggling with this. He's like, no. As much as he's accountable to you, you need to be accountable to him.
As you're talking, all I heard is like how you had, it's gonna bring you closer and closer to God, because you're having to cling to him, you know, to be able to, like, no other choice, you know.
Yeah, there's no other
How
option.
beautiful that is, and God, you know, gets the glory for that, and as much as we want to be instantly healed from some of these issues and struggles that we have, it is an opportunity for us to cling to the Lord, because, you know, being desperate to be able to walk through that with Mikey. And he may never take it away, but man, you got Jesus and he'll, you know, he's
You're
always
right,
faithful to
there's-
bring you through.
Yeah, God had said, okay, by 2030, you're gonna be completely delivered from the that prayer has to do that, word.
Revelation.
I'm sorry.
You're fine. You're fine. I'm impressed that you're comfortable to share something like that. That's amazing.
Very shame. But I don't, but it's just.
But the best in disinfectant is light.
Yes. I wouldn't share that with Christian. No, I'm serious. It's a very,
Right.
I'm telling you, that stuff is destructive.
Yes, it is.
I'm remembering something I heard, Rabbi Johnson Kahn, he's written a book called The Return of the Gods. Have you read that book?
I have.
Do you remember what some of the Return of the Gods were? Do you remember Ishtar? And that she had her own temple and she had men, she'd dress up like women. I mean, it can be a spirit.
Yes, I don't want to rabbit trail too far, but I would just say, yes, I heard they're talking about fail feedback
Yeah.
Yeah.
in America.
That you telling.
Moloch, yeah.
You say, always
And
sacrifice the children of
yeah,
man.
it's I don't.
Maybe you need to take your authority in Jesus' name and rebuke that as it's a spirit.
Oh,
Wouldn't hurt.
no, yeah, it's completely, I will take all suggestions, things that align with the word, I will take those suggestions.
So let's talk about the time on these, the time reference. Did God speak in the past? Yes. Does God still speak today?
Yes.
He does. When he speaks today, is he saying things that are new?
No.
You're right. He's not saying new things, but what he's giving you is a new application of what he's already said. He's giving you new understanding of what he's already said. He's not adding to in the sense that, okay, I'm going to come up with this totally new doctrine, this totally new idea now. That's people get scared when they start talking like that. If you can't find it in the book, if you can't find verses for it, you probably need to really question whether or not God actually said that or not. So he continues to speak today, but he does so with a different spin, a different application, a different style even to what he said before, right? When has his word worked? Has his word worked in the past? Has it returned to him with results? Is it returning to him today with results? Will it return to him tomorrow with results? So God spoke, he speaks, he is speaking. He got results, he is getting results, he will get results. All parts of this, the speaking and the results, are in all the time periods
Throughout eternity.
and throughout eternity, forward and backwards, if you really want to say it. But anyway, there's no time limit as we understand it. But what we need to do, what we need to grasp is once we start talking about the future, it becomes our present. I'll just leave that right there and we won't get any more philosophical than that. But all right, moving right along. Galatians 6:9. And let us not lose heart and grow weary and faint in acting nobly and doing right. For in due time, at the appointed season, we shall reap if we do not loosen and relax our courage and faint. Now, I tell people this all the time. This is, in my opinion, the enemy's motto, the enemy's guidebook. This is his playbook on how he tends to attack you, how he tends to mess with you. This is saying that if you keep doing what you're supposed to be doing, eventually you'll get the results. So if you don't loosen, relax your courage, and faint, what role do you have in this? To not loosen, to not lessen your courage, to not let go of your grip, or faint. If you don't do those things, what's the guaranteed outcome? You will reap. If you do these things, are you going to reap? So what does the enemy do? What is his play tactic? What is his goal? I'm going to wear you out. I'm going to make sure that I give you plenty of opportunities to give up, plenty of opportunities to let it go, plenty of opportunities to lessen your grip, plenty of opportunities for you to faint. I'm going to get you to change your mind about where you're going. Go ahead, Danny.
How he gets tired of putting every single situation to God. Because, and to quote, he said, "Can I not just have time to myself?" And I'm like, you can. It's extremely dangerous. I thought the same way about it too.
And you were bought with a price.
Yeah, and I did think the same way, but through being in association with the right people, they spoke in terms that I can understand, and that was, you're building a muscle. You're building up that muscle, just endurance and staying and bringing everything to God.
Right. And staying in the process.
And staying.
People forget that resting is so important because they're just resting.
But you're resting in.
In the Lord, you're still going to have sometimes I'm just too tired to even like even utter, that's where, you know, the Holy Spirit intercedes on our behalf, just resting, and especially like times in my secret place, you know, with the Lord, just like, I'm just, when I'm tired, you know, and just resting with him, and it's in silence, and it's like the best time of refreshing, so.
We can't allow ourselves to get tired of living the right way. Certainly, each of us will receive everlasting life at the proper time if we don't give up. And let us not get tired of doing what is right, for after a while we will reap a harvest of blessing if we don't get discouraged and give up. The promise is very sure. And the only tactic that the enemy has to stop it is to get you to quit. So he will keep giving you opportunities to quit. He will make it increasingly easy for you to quit, for you to give up, for you to let it go. Knowing that the more times you tell him no, the more times you tell him, get out of here, shut up, leave me alone, the closer and closer and closer you are to receiving what you've been working for.
You can on him one day.
That's true.
He will be in the pit, can't get out.
This whole concept, this whole idea of time, this whole idea of I'm waiting for this future result. I'm expecting this future result. There's a theme in Christianity, and you do well to understand it, and it will help you along this journey. Before I give you that, has any of you ever asked the question, why isn't this working for me? This doesn't seem to be working. Why isn't this working? Have you ever had that thought? Have you ever had that question? The reason, the answer, at least part of the answer to that question is what we're about to talk about. And it relates to this idea of giving up or quitting. Truth comes as a seed. Truth comes as a seed. Let's just assume for a second that I have a neighbor with a beautiful apple tree in their yard. Year after year, I admire that tree and the amazing apples it produces. I get to the point of envying that tree. I simply must have that for myself. One night I go over there and under the cover of darkness, I cut off several apples and even a few limbs of that tree and bring them back to my house. In my backyard, there's a nondescript generic tree. Not beautiful by any means, but not an eyesore either. I get the duct tape and secure the limb from that apple tree onto a limb from my tree. I also get the super glue and I glue some of those apples on my tree. How well do you think my apple tree is going to work out? Why? What did I do wrong? I didn't graft it in. Okay, that's key part, but truth comes as a seed, not as fruit. I didn't plant it. I tried to transplant it and I didn't even do that right. And we laugh at the result. We laugh at the context. But yet in spiritual dynamics, we do the same thing. We hear somebody talk about the success that they've had and the journey that they've had with God and how God did all this stuff for them. And we want that. Well, if they can have it, I can too. And we expect that their fruit comes to us as a fruit. And it does not. Their fruit came to them as a seed and they've already gone through the process. Their fruit is now being deposed to you as a seed, and now you've got to go through the process. So what should I have done with this apple tree if I really wanted some of those apples? I take an apple, bite down till I get down to the core of it and get some of the seeds out of the core of that thing and plant those seeds in my yard. How long is it going to be before I get apples off of my new apple tree?
At least a year.
It will be a little while. It's not going to happen overnight.
Flower, I get to be able to.
That's good. Yeah.
Unity.
Right.
It's just next door, maybe the beach will.
You might be able to buy a young apple tree and transplant the whole tree into your yard. This could shave a few years off of the process before I got apples myself. The underlying dynamics are still the same. You have to plant this thing. In that case, you're planting fruit and seed, but you're still planting seed into the yard, not just the fruit into the yard. I would call that whole process, this transplant the tree into the yard. I would say, and you can say this prophetically if you want to address it that way, but God's running out of time. He's running out of time to get all the stuff that he's got to get done before this thing winds up. So there are going to be some things that he starts putting in place that start saving people time.
Not trying to sound, I want to say this. When someone hands you some fruit, what do you do with it? You eat it. That fruit is not for, you produced it, but it's not for you. So yes, God will speed up the process. Because if he sees he can use you, he's going to use you.
Yeah.
And usually the harvest, let's say, I used to have a one tree that's very, and the very last season before I got a divorce and moved, I had so much abundance of fruit is that I had to give it away.
Yeah.
Like, cause there was so, I mean, it was this tiny tree that produced so many plums. And I had to, because that's really what it's about, like harvesting, like whether it's apple tree or whatever, usually there's an abundance and you
Right.
can't eat all of it. So
Right.
you can't keep it. Give it away,
I can't
or
say,
it will not.
I don't want to speak for every, generalities, but I mean, I'm with you. I missed the part of that. I wanted to be delivered and released from all these things and everything, but I was just wanting for myself. And God's like, well, that's fine. Something.
There's a bigger purpose. Yeah, there's something more I have in mind.
Yeah, sorry.
So if God is to speed this up, then I think that it's like this. I've got a younger tree that I'm going to transplant the whole tree into this new area. What does it look like spiritually? I think that's impartation. I think that's laying on of hands, where you can gift somebody with a portion of your process. Now, it's not going to eliminate them going through at least part of the process. They still got to take that thing that has been now planted and tend to it, develop it a little bit. But to speed the system up, you're going to see that happen more and more. People just lay hands on people and they're not getting zapped, but the process is accelerating much more so than it would have without that whole thing occurring. And we don't understand the dynamics of all that does and how that all it works. I'm really interested to see once somebody figures that out, how that changes things, how that begins to operate. There'll probably be some resistance about how that whole thing. Anyway, God's got to really adjust some people before he can start.
Well, I look at it like, striking, it's like you have a spiritual, like whether it's your mindset and you're delivered from certain things, whether it's depression, anxiety, whatever, but there's other things you have to walk through, because, so usually it's a process, but could you imagine if, all of a sudden it was lifted and it got, that's God's planting a small tree.
Right.
And to be able, that's
Right.
accelerating the process for the person having to go through some of this other process.
Right.
Not saying it's all be done, it's obviously to stay free, there is a process to that, and to be able to change, but if you had that lifted, that's a tree, and to be able to cultivate that tree, to be able to produce that fruit.
Right.
The seedling.
Go ahead.
I was looking for a major Christianity for that. And I had a suicidal situation, and so I admitted myself one day to the crisis center, and I did. But when I came out, when I got home, I looked at that medicine, and I had come off of all my medicine, and I was like, man, God, I don't want to do this. My faith is not for nothing. And so I fasted and prayed for 2 days, and ever since then, I've been delivered from my major depression and my
Awesome.
PTSD.
Praise God.
And, but now, what she was talking about, how I wanted to relate to that was, I went to a fall conference because I'm a peer recovery support specialist, and there was this specialist there. He's a specialist in counseling and therapy, and he made this workbook. And it's for cognitive behavioral therapy, because we have behavioral issues, we have thinking errors and things like this. And so this conflicts with, our personality and how we output things to people, right? So I thought, well, okay, God, here's another step.
Right.
Let me go ahead and work this out so that I can help and how do you change your thinking? You replace it with the word of God. And, you know, we do not conform to the ways of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. How do you renew it? By the word of God. So, but these two things go hand in hand. The cognitive behavioral therapy, because what God tells us to do is what this is actually.
Yes.
But they don't relate it as it's the same, but it is the same. So I thought, well, let's do it. Why don't I do my work, God? And I know that he says, if I draw near to him, God draws near to me. And, when I step up to the plate and I get real with God, God's right there with you, like, "Brother David, let's do this.
Yes.
Let's go, you know? So,
And you're putting yourself in a position too, to be able to help the next person accelerate.
that's why I'm doing that. To receive when they're recovering, because you can get sober and not be in recovery. Because you're not recovering mentally, you're not recovering in your behavioral issues, you're not recovering from, your character defects, you know, and I wanna continue growing until the day I go see my Lord.
Right.
Like you, but I don't know it all.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Let me, I prayed, I started deep praying about God. Just fill me with humbleness. Yeah, and I've always prayed for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, but I pray for a double portion of it because I know how my mind works, and I don't have God in this way. I cannot be utilized by him in a way that I know he has said and careful.
The concept of a seed indicates the process of growth continues until fruition. You should not expect freedom in a problem area without abiding God's word in that area. Reading this book does not mean that you'll be any freer necessarily in any certain area than you were without reading the book. It's like Danny said earlier, you get another tool, you get another means to accomplish that end. It's not the end in itself, it's another way to get to the end, another tactic you can put in place to get yourself there. You must continue to work the process. And that's what you're doing. You're working the process. But when people hear you talk and hear whatever comes as a result of that, to them, it's still got to come in some sort of seed form that they've got to operate in. It's fruit to you, but it's going to be seed to them. They can't receive the fruit from you.
You know, because I would go to church and I was married, right, and I would come home and it was like all HEW hockey sticks were look, you know what I mean? And I was like, God, how can I get this made?
Right.
So, but it's been a whole process, you know, and so I'm finally at this place, which I'm like, thank God, you know, because it's not that way.
Right.
But, so this is. The testimony of this man is great because it shows you, hey, what you're going through is.
Right,
normal.
right.
This is a process.
Right.
Just enjoy where you're at the moment, learn what you need, pick up the tools you need.
And how much better would your life as a Christian have gone if you'd have known this 20 years ago or 10 years ago or last week? Or what I'm trying to tell you is, here is the way this system works. Don't be surprised if this is the way it works in your life too. If God does something unusual, great, praise God. I'm still going to say you're not going to get out of this all the way. There's going to be at least one area of your life where you've got to go through all the steps. All right, let's talk about this quickly. Homework. Jesus teaches about the parable of the sower and its explanation in Matthew 13, Mark 4, and Luke 8. I want you to read it out of all those passages. Not only the parable, but the explanation of the parable. So this parable is talking about the word is deposited, the word is sent forth, and it talks about 4 different types of soil. And what does that imply to us? You've got to tend your seed at all points along the process. You don't ever get to stop tending to the seed that word is trying to bring to pass, that word is trying to mature and develop and grow inside you. You can't ever stop tending to it. You've got to tend to it. So at all points along the progression, you've still got to tend to it. Let's see how the enemy wants to deal with you at all points of this progression. Let's do from the chapter, from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 4:15, Mark 4:15. The ones along the path are those who have the word sown in their hearts, but when they hear, Satan comes at once and by force takes away the message which is sown in them. Sometimes the teaching, the word, the message falls on the road along the path. It's like people who hear the teaching of God, word, message, but Satan quickly comes and takes away the teaching, the word, the message that was planted, sown in them. Some people are like the seed thrown on the path, and the tempter snaps up the word before it can even take root. Now, that one's key. The tempter snaps up the seed. He steals the seed before it can even take root. Many versions say that the enemy comes immediately. Some say straightway or right away. What event starts the clock, so to speak, with regard to the enemy trying to steal the seed? From all these verses, what thing happens that starts the clock in the enemy's head? As soon as the seed is planted, okay, say that differently.
As soon as the word.
The word is delivered. The word is, it's not planted yet. The word is even spoken. The word is even brought to bear in that situation. As soon as that happens in the enemy's world, a clock starts going off. Oh crud, if I've got any shot at stopping this, if I've got any shot at preventing this from happening, I need to act now. Do some people survive the first level? Do they actually get the word planted? They avoid it being stolen right away? Absolutely, of course. If you do survive the first level, are you completely out of the woods? Does that guarantee you a harvest if you get past this level of attack of the word that's sown? I dare say that if you take your life as a whole, you'll find yourself in at least one of these categories that we're going to be talking about at least once in your life, and probably all of them at the same time. So in this area, you may be at level 3. And in this other level, you may be at level 1. In this area, you may be at level 2. And at this area over here, you may be in harvest mode. So don't hear me say, okay, I've arrived once I pass level 1. Well, it's different for each area that you're talking about. The word is sown about finances. The word is sown about healing. The word is sown about deliverance. The word is sown about joy. The word is sown about all these different things, and you're in a different state for each of these areas. So if this doesn't apply to you in whatever area you're going on to, great. It might next week when you're dealing with something else. Okay. Next verse, next level. Mark 4, 16 and 17. In a similar way, these in the second group are the ones on whom the seed was sown in rocky ground, who, when they hear the word, immediately receive it with joy, but accept it only superficially. They have no real root in themselves. So they endure only for a little while, and then when trouble or persecution becomes because of the word, immediately they are offended and displeased at being associated with me and stumble and fall away. Now, I split this kind of a little differently so you could see this. Before we move to the next version, I want you to grasp this concept here. At this level, the enemy looks like trouble or persecution. Do you see that? When trouble or persecution comes because of the word. So the enemy is showing his hand. He's manifesting himself in the form of trouble or persecution. Okay? What causes the trouble? What causes the persecution? What's the verse say? Because of the word. Did you sin? Did your trouble, did your persecution come because you messed up? What prompted the trouble? The word. What prompted the persecution? The word. We've got to get past this. Well, what did I do wrong? You did nothing wrong. You did something right, exactly. And the enemy is trying to stop that right thing because that right thing is going to ultimately harm him. It's going to ultimately destroy something that he's trying to accomplish. So it's the word that gets planted in you that now causes the trouble, that now causes the persecution. You got to see that. You can choose to not allow the word to enter. I'm going to avoid the trouble. I'm going to avoid the persecution. I'm not going to allow the word to come in. Is that a better state? You're staying in your same mess. You're not going anywhere. Nothing is changing if you don't allow the word in. So you got trouble now. And then, okay, I'm tired of this trouble. I want something else. I want to get past this. I'm going to bring that word of God stuff in here and we're going to see what it can do for me. And then what's the next thing that happens? You got trouble. Wait a minute. I had trouble before. I've still got trouble. It's part of the process. It's part of another effort to get you to let go of what you're trying to accomplish. To stop, to quit. Yeah, absolutely. Correct. Another version. In the same way, the ones sown upon stony ground are like those when they hear the word, at once receive it and accept it and welcome it with joy. They have no real root in themselves, so they endure for a little while. And when trouble or persecution arises on the account of the word, they are immediately offended, become displeased, indignant, resentful, and they stumble and fall away. Now, I'm not going to ask you to say, has that ever happened to you? But I'm going to ask the question, has that ever happened to you? You hear this sermon and I'm going to do that. That sounds great. I want that. And then all hell breaks loose once you make that decision. What did I do wrong? Fooey with this doesn't work. Do you see how he's trying to get you to let go of the process? To stop the process.
Say not the assembly of yourselves together. Even more, as you see the day of.
Assuming that that group that you're assembling with knows this, is talking about this, is giving you the truth about what's actually going on. But do you see how sinister his plan is? I had trouble before, and I'm thinking I'm doing something to get out of the trouble, and now I've got more trouble. But now the trouble has a different source. The trouble is the word already starting to work, already starting to cut, already starting to replant, already starting to replace certain things that's junk in your life. Some of the seeds fell on soil with rocks in it. This is also like some people who hear God's message. These people are happy to believe it for a time. They're like plants that have not grown down well into the soil. So they only believe for a short time. They may have problems, or because they obey God's message, other people may do bad things to them. When that happens, these people soon stop believing. Now notice what that says. Because they obey God's message, other people may do bad things to them. What caused other people doing bad things to you? Because you obeyed God's message. And when the enemy presents it to us, he presents it to us, you did something wrong. Exactly. But that's not the way that he will frame that discussion. Again, his intent is to get you to quit. His intent is to get you to stop this process, to abort the growth, to kill the seed. Exactly. One more of these. And some like the seed that lands in the gravel. When they first hear the word, they respond with great enthusiasm. But there is such shallow soil of character that when the emotions wear off and some difficulty arrives, there's nothing to show for it. Now, I dare say that all of us have probably been in that camp at least one time in our lives, where we tried something new and it didn't go as quickly, it didn't go as wonderfully, it wasn't as blissful as we thought it was going to be. And we said, well, phooey with that. And what did Satan effectively do? He stole that truth that was going to start to get us to a result that we wanted. So now we're at least in the same level of bondage that we were before, if not worse than we were before, because now we've got an agenda against trying something new the next time. Go back to my apple tree. What's the easiest way to destroy my tree? When is that tree the most vulnerable? If I'm planting a tree in my yard, when's the easiest time to kill it? When it's still a seed. I don't have to plant it, for one. When's the next least time for it's the most vulnerable? Is it easier to destroy when it first shoots up a little twig or a little stick? Or is it easier to kill when it's full grown? They put sticks and things around it to make it grow straight because the wind can shift it. The wind can blow it out. The wind can cause it to be damaged. It's fragile. Same is true with that seed that's implanted in you. You hear the word of God. You hear the message about things. I'm doing that. That sounds like exactly what I'm going for that. And then trouble comes. And then persecution comes. What is the source of the trouble? The very word that you're acting on. And the enemy is using it against you now to try and get you to quit, to get you to stop, to get you to let this thing go so that he doesn't have to deal with the full grown fruit of that decision. The devil knows better than we do how this works. Truth must develop roots. The new ideas some of you have encountered from this book are seeds. They don't yet have roots in your heart. Consequently, they're still fairly easy to destroy. Don't be deceived into thinking that you're a master with all this yet. Don't assume that you're bulletproof. God will always resist the proud and give grace to the humble. Keep that in mind. Oh, I went to that class. I'm an expert on this now. Watch out. You may be further along than the next guy, but you're probably only 1 or 2 steps further along than the next guy. It's not that you've arrived. It's not that I've arrived. It's not that anybody's arrived yet. It's okay. I may be a little further down this journey, but I'm still not there. I still have not got this thing mastered. I still have not got this figured out. And I still need God's help to take my next step along my journey. Verses 18 and 19. And the one sown among thorns, and the others who hear the word. Then the cares and the anxieties of the world, and the distractions of the age, the pleasures and the delight, and the false clamor, and the deceitfulness of riches, and the craving and the passionate desire for other things creep in and choke and suffocate the word, and it becomes fruitless. Okay, do you see the 3 levels here? The first level, it has just been planted, and they hadn't even really taken it in yet. Second level, it did get planted, but it got no root. It hadn't been in there very long. So trouble, persecution comes. And you just say, well, fooey with that. I'm done. I'm messed up. And you're leaving. Kidding. Have a good one, Chris. This is the third level. So who are these guys? The word was received. So it wasn't stolen at the very beginning. It got to a point where it started growing, so it developed a little bit of root. They're well on their way. And now what's the third level? The cares of this world, the deceitfulness of riches. Stuff happens. Life happens. And what do? I'll get back to that after I'm done dealing with this. I don't need to go to church right now. I'm doing pretty good. I'm heading in the right direction. So I need to take care of this other thing over here, and then I'll get back. Do you see the opportunity for theft there? What are you not doing? You're not tending to that seed in the midst of all the other stuff that happens in life. I just don't know how I'm going to make my rent payment this week, and I just don't know how I'm going to do all these extra bills, and I just don't know how I'm going to do all this, and how I'm going to meet all these needs, and how I'm going to finish all this stuff. I just don't know how I'm going to do it all. And you're not even worried about the seed, or tending that seed, or caring for that seed, or making sure that seed continues to grow, to develop, to mature. The seed cast in the weeds represents the ones who hear the kingdom news but are overwhelmed with worries about all the things they have to do and all the things they want to get. The stress strangles what they heard and nothing comes of it. The seed that was planted among thorns is like some people who listen to the word, but the cares of this life let the thorns come up. A love for riches and always wanting other things let thorns grow. These things do not give the word room to grow so that it does not give grain. Your heart only has so much space. You only have so much spiritual energy. How do we spend that energy? What occupies that space? And if it's full of junk that doesn't really get us to where we're going, what is that costing us? How much is it preventing what we actually do want to happen from happening? Still others are the seed tossed among weeds and brambles. The word has reached them, but the things of this life, the worries, the drive for more and more, the desire for other things, those things cluster around close and choke the life of God out of them until they cannot produce. At all three phases, all the way along the process, the enemy tries to stop the seed cycle. Notice his tactics are different at each phase. In the parable, if you read the parable, these are three types of soil. It was only the fourth type of soil that brought forth any sort of harvest. So 25% of the people got to a point of harvest. The other 75% lost it at some point along the way and did not get to their harvest. Which group are you in? Which group am I in? And again, it varies by which area we're talking about in our lives. How badly do we want it? Are we willing to not only start the process, are we willing to give it some root, and then are we willing to start tending the garden to get rid of all the stuff that want to choke it out? Without wanting to give any credit to the enemy of our souls, you must admit that he is very good at his job of preventing us from getting to our harvest. I'm not trying to sing his praises or anything like that, but he's very good at what he does. He's had a lot of practice. Years and years and years of watching human history and watching how it unfolds and watching human behavior and knowing what is really in us and how he can manipulate that and how he can distort that and how he can distract us from the things that are really important. We know how this seed principle operates. And because of this, we're learning not to be ignorant of his devices. It's going to give us the advantage. It's going to change our odds. Instead of it being 25%, maybe you're now at 50%. Maybe you're now at 75% of the time. You can get the word from the seed all the way to the fruit without losing it, without getting distracted, without getting mad, without getting upset because stuff just didn't going right. We won't be surprised when the thief makes a play. We also know that the power of God is working deeply on our behalf. We can start to realize how much God wants us free and that he wants to help us through this process. Remember, we talked earlier, if he can do anything and he could zap you if he wanted to, but he is elected, okay, this is the best way for you to get from here to there. This process, this time-consuming process is the best way. If that's the way that he set it up and he could do anything he wants, don't you think he wants to help us at every point along that path? And then one more time, Galatians 6:9, but this version might say it a little differently today. Don't allow yourselves to be weary in planting good seeds. For the season of reaping, the wonderful harvest you planted is coming. If you don't give up, let go, quit. If you don't let him steal the seed at some point along the thing, then you can go from the fact that that truth was deposited as a seed, but now I'm walking in the fruit of that thing. Now I'm walking in the harvest of that thing. And my fruit can now be a seed for somebody else.